Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Blokes podcast. Ryan Hassan here from the Centre for Healing, joined as always by Nick Sutherland from Myndfit. Nico, how are you, mate?
Super. How are you?
I was doing a bit of like a Zen, like trying to calm myself down a little bit when we first jumped on Zoom, but I'm feeling very lovely now.
It was quite as I said, I don't know if it was just in the moment you had this Fabio sort of pose going on. It's quite
Yeah,
a
I haven't
quite
quite
a
got the
model
the
pose.
Fabio hair, do I? But
Oh, you
yeah,
don't?
I was pinging around. Sometimes I know probably less likely for you, but it's a very familiar. I ping around, and I had like a call. I was on with someone. Then I'm like, I got to get ready for this. Make myself a cup of tea. Cleaner rocked up. Mel was asking me stuff. All things were happening, and then I sat down here and I just had to take a moment to defrazzle.
Wonderful. Great self-management.
Yeah, thanks. So it's it's Men's Health Week apparently. It's always some sort of week, isn't it? But it's Men's
Month,
Health Week.
month,
Oh, we get a month.
whole month.
Oh, look at us go.
I know, right?
So the whole month of June.
Yeah.
Okay, so we thought we'd, talk about the Woke Blokes podcast, and we do have quite a few female listeners as well, and we really appreciate that. And today we're going to talk about men's health, though, and what that means to us, and what we've seen over the years of working with men, and maybe some of the differences as well, Nick, between, a way that maybe a female would look after themselves and their health compared to a man.
Or a way that a woman can support a man in his health, because I think there's a big gap there, which I'd like to touch on today.
Yeah, okay. All right, I like it.
And we
You
had
know,
remember we had Glenn Poole on as a guest from the Australian Men's Health Forum many moons ago. So
feels like a lifetime ago.
and that feels like many golf trips ago.
It does. I had probably a few less wrinkles around the eyes back then. But yeah, I actually can I kick this off? I just thought I'd start because it's really interesting because you said to me yesterday, you let me know that it was Men's Health Month and we could talk about it. And just serendipitously at the same time, I was unsure if that was going to come out correctly, that word, but I think it did.
Did
Um,
well.
we had someone in our student community of embodied processing, one of the practitioner trainings we have, reach out literally, yesterday and just ask and discuss the differences of working with men versus women. And she's been, using our methods for the last 3 or so years. And then I told her, I said, can you email me and just let me know your experience? Because I have mine and everything, but, I'd love to hear what other people are doing. And she sent me an email and it was really great. It was really detailed, but I'll just let you know some of the key points because she was noticing some difference in working with men and women and that men are very heavily love to intellectualize and cognize their experience. And obviously, this isn't black or white. Different females have male traits, males have female traits. There's masculine and feminine energies, and we acknowledge all of that. But and then she just was doing a bit of research there, and she brought up three different points here around how men maybe can process things as opposed to women. So she spoke about, without getting too technical, she spoke about the neuroanatomical crossover and that women have more robust interhemispheric connectivity via the corpus callosum. This is me not going to get technical, Jesus. So allowing for more fluid integration between the left and right brain functions. And we might know left and right brain is that creative and intuitive side of the brain versus the very analytical, problem solving side of the brain. And so it seems like women have a lot more interconnectedness between the two, whereas men don't seem to. And this is based on brain scans and the way that our brains tend to work. Also, the socialization patterns, and this is something we can talk about as well. It's, from a young age, boys are often taught to suppress or override their emotions or bodily cues, while girls are, can be more encouraged to feel and express, and it seems to come a bit more naturally to them. And then also the hormonal balances and sort of differences in the nervous system. And hormonally, men having a lot more testosterone and a lot more kind of fight or flight energy. Can all these factors can really play into, I guess, the differences between men and women. What are your thoughts on all that, Nico? I don't know if you're bored or deep in thought. I'm leaning towards bored.
We'll run with that. Um, It's fascinating. I don't know. It's great insight. It's working on a level that I don't tend to work on. So it's very interesting sitting to listen. I was just trying to process it, and um, I think the most important thing is how you prefaced it all, which is it's not black and white. So you know, everyone's brains operates differently, and there's a I don't know. I'm just trying to. My experience is I the woke movement has a lot to answer for because my mind goes to I don't tend to see gender in clients. Now I'm going, oh, but now I'm a non-binary therapist doing the woke blokes podcast.
You'll have a rainbow dyed hair soon.
But I think there are natural differences, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to sit with it for a while. I think everyone underneath it, everyone's just human. Everyone's got these human nature and human instincts, and I think we all want to be understood and loved and liked. And yes, we do process differently, and it's more about how we get along with those fundamental differences. So I don't know. I don't know. Going to be
That
my
was
answer.
a really long-winded way of saying you don't know.
Well, I said I don't know a lot of times in there, but
Well,
because I don't know what
I
your question is, what do I think of that? And I'm like, it's a very broad question. So maybe if you can be a bit more specific.
I was just thinking, because I started a WhatsApp conversation with this one of our practitioners, and I had to really think about my experience of working with clients because I don't like you, I don't really think about it. Oh, this is a man or a woman, so this is how I'll approach it differently. I just think I intuitively approach a client differently because I guess, pick up on their nature,
Mm.
the way they process things. And so I was trying to think then about, okay, is there a main difference in the way that I interact in a practitioner-client relationship with men versus women? And I have noticed myself with it naturally, I guess, being a bit softer and nurturing with females. Obviously, not too much, but like, a little bit of that way. And I found myself really noticing, especially like as you said in the email, if a male is sort of over intellectualizing their experience, at the neglect of their emotions and feelings and what's happening underneath, I tend to uh, be a little bit more blunt, with males and call them out early and sort of bring it up if I ever think they're intellectualizing and more often than not, they will respect that and we can kind of laugh together about it and it helps them see a bit more about themselves.
Thank you, because that helps me. Because I think I'm the opposite. I think I'm more blunt with women and softer with
Mm,
men. Because
interesting.
I think women get very women identify as their feelings and are very in their emotions, and so using a firmer approach has worked wonders, and it's been reported back that my female clients are really, whilst they may feel challenged with it in the moment, afterwards they're like, oh yeah, that was actually really effective. That was really important. I've had it from a lot of female clients that they've struggled working with female therapists because they feel that it's too similar. So they
Mm.
need a male sort of energy to bring them out. And then working with men, um, they're too in their heads. We need to get them back in touch with their feelings a bit. So that's why I sort of tend to be softer with them and a bit more emotive with them. So yeah, that's been my approach.
Why do you think men commit suicide at a incredibly higher rate than women do?
Oh, I believe men are more inclined to take their own lives because there's many contributing factors. So it's not just one thing. Um, yeah, I mean, it starts from an early age. Suppress your emotions. You can't talk about your feelings because you're a pussy. So there's that. It's a broad shutdown. But I don't think a lot of I think men are very emotional creatures. I think men are very wanting to communicate and express, but I don't think they feel safe to do that either with their friendship group, because other blokes don't know what to do with that, but especially around their women, because I don't think women are equipped to handle an emotional man.
Mm.
And I think men just feel so misunderstood and so isolated and alone that it's just like, all right, well, they're in such pain. It's anguish. I think they're in such anguish that the only way that they can see to get rid of that pain is to end their life. I don't believe men want to end their life. I believe men want to end the pain, but they can't figure out a way to do that. Um, so yeah, they take unfortunately, they take the absolute option.
Yeah, I heard a saying once, it's like they don't want to end their life, they just want to end the life that they're living. So
Mm.
it's like if another option was perceived to be available, that would be the chosen path. But it's just it gets and the word lonely and isolated, I think, was a great description. And you put shame in there with being alone and isolated, and not being able to see a way out. Then men take that path. I have this. This isn't to do with suicide, but it's an interesting note. I have this client at the minute, and he's a man, and we were chatting the other day, and we've worked out, so much of his drive in life is to avoid any feeling of shame, like not even just the inability to sit with it, the idea of being in shame in any way is so terrifying that he would take certain actions, and he sort of had this issue at the minute, and he was really stressed about it, and he could reach out to some people who would be able to help him and make the process a lot easier, but he couldn't bring himself to do it purely because that might elicit feelings of shame because they might point out things that he hasn't seen, and that would reflect poorly on him. And it was just really interesting to note. We spent quite a bit of time exploring it, that it's like this main stress in your life could be made easier by asking for help, but I'm not going to do it anyway, even though I know it. Because this sounds so crazy. I'm like, it's not crazy. It's just the way you're working at the minute. But I can't literally reach out because that might make me feel deficient in some way, and I can't handle that. And it's just this, and I really thought about that. It's like what you said, the male will then just go to this extreme, and the extreme, not in his case, but in someone else's, is suicide, as opposed to, reaching out for help in places that might be able to help us.
Well, and as I was listening to that, my Myndfit radar just detects ego in there, and it's I want
I just imagine like little beepers and antenna coming off your head.
to. And I can hear it clearly. It's I must be loved and liked. I must be seen as being perfect. I can't have any chinks in my armor or flaws or anything. And I think this is a societal thing built over decades as well. That men have to be this rock, this solid thing with no weakness, and it's been imprinted in everybody that men talking about feelings or emotions is a sign of weakness, which is crazy because it's being vulnerable and it takes so much strength to be vulnerable. So it's a interesting one there. But I had a client yesterday and we were talking about um, stubbornness, and I think I've spoken to you about it before on here, but the label stubborn is put on a lot of blokes. Men are stubborn. They won't go and get help. They won't go and ask for help. But if you take the label off and look beyond, you know, what's happening on a surface level, it's anxiety. There's fear. Your client there is too. It's anxiety. I'm afraid of being judged. I'm afraid of the unknown. I'm afraid of being perceived differently. I'm afraid of change. I'm afraid that there's all this fear in relation to very different things going on there, which on the surface may present to an untrained eye as stubborn, but it's actually a self-preservation thing. It's a protective thing, which then doesn't help them in the long run, unfortunately. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
can be
it's
anything, can't it? Fearing failure, but also fearing success, feeling intimacy, or fearing intimacy, but also fearing being alone. We're all just this human beings, a real accumulation of these different fears and desires, that we have, which are normally just based on experiences that we've had, which, if we don't properly address and look at and process and, look at differently, it'll just continue to happen, forever. Time doesn't heal those wounds.
no, and obviously too many have been sadly lost, and it's continuing. Um, but I just my mind goes back to the definition of health, which is a state of complete mental, physical, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So men's health, you got to look at it in that holistic light. And I think mental health is so deeply connected to social health and social well-being, and a lot of blokes um, are in very surface level relationships. Maybe I don't know if there's a lot of depth to them. There's I don't know, you watch videos on the internet or whatever, and you see like bros being bros and bros hanging out, bros doing this, and there's a lot of great examples of what men can do as a collective and connection and trips away and that. But there's also the other end of that spectrum, which is not helping men in their overall health and well-being as well. So yeah, I just it's a really interesting one because I think we're at a really weird point in time where men are you know, in this state or position, or I don't know if it's been asked of them or if they're asking to instead of just being the rock and being this hard, immovable thing, they're trying, I think, and women have been demanding it for how many years? I just want him to talk. I wish he'd open up. And then they open up and it's like, shut down, stop it. I can't handle this. I don't know what to do with it.
It's confusing.
Yeah, and I'm feeling that too. And why are we now focused on your emotions? Why aren't we focused on mine? And that's when men go, okay, and shut down. Did you see the video of the dude with a spool of wire on the internet? So this bloke was sitting in his backyard, and his wife walks out with a phone, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's just sitting very peacefully, sitting there with this like spool of wire, and he's like, I've got about 2 feet of this left. He goes, I bought this 20 years ago. This represents, all this time. This used to be this big, and now it's whittled down to here. And he's having the most amazing experience. And she just absolutely trashes him. She's like, it's just wild. And then she goes, I thought you were upset because he's wearing his football team hat. I thought you were upset because of your hat and because your team lost and blah blah. And she completely runs over him, and the internet absolutely got around this dude. It's like blink twice if you need help, and just absolutely you know trash this woman or called her out or had her accountable, and then she goes and makes another video in his face going, respond to the internet, tell them I'm not a bad person, tell them,
Oh,
and he's there going,
Jesus.
oh, dude, it was fucking
She
horrific.
is not a bad person. Like those hostage tapes.
Oh, it was. It was
Wow.
so gnarly. It was so horrible, and everyone's hearts was just breaking for this dude.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there having this moment, this deep introspective moment where he's like, all the things I've done with this wire, and she couldn't grasp it because she didn't have the capacity to sit there and just keep it about him. And just she didn't have to understand his experience. She just had to understand that he was having an
Yeah,
experience.
that was important to him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
don't trash it.
I think that what you said about it being a really interesting time is very true because we're in this time where the last decade or so, this idea of what a man is and what masculinity is has first of all been kind of shat on, and probably rightfully so to a degree because we've seen a
Yeah,
lot of
totally.
destructive aspects of that.
Yeah.
And like the pendulum's kind of swung away from that idea of a man, and almost to the point where a lot of people tell you should be ashamed to be a man, which is hilarious to me. It's like, you should be ashamed for being, go.
A lot of the younger I heard someone talking about the other day, like, oh, America's fucked if we go to war because it's gone from let's go to war to actually my therapist said that war is probably not a good thing for me to and men, men have gone. Imagine the soldiers that are going to turn up. It's just,
Yeah. Well, apparently, I brought this up a while ago on the podcast. It's some crazy stat of like 40 something percent of people that would be eligible for enlistment wouldn't be able to get in because of health concerns, obesity, alcoholism, addiction. Like they don't even fit to do it. But now it's like this, we're trying to, I think, work out collectively, not just as men, but also women as well. We're trying to work out like what is the healthy idea of a man. And I think one thing that came to mind when you were speaking earlier, it's like there's this idea of a man who's stoic, provider, keeps to himself, leader to a degree.
cowboy.
But then there's like, there's another, submissive man who, does what he's told and, all that. But we can be anything, we don't have to be everything all the time. Like there's a place for me to be a stoic leader and keep to myself. And there's times for me to be more softer and open up emotionally. There's times for me to be more engaging or more withdrawing in certain circumstances. We're fluid beings. So the idea that any man or any woman has to be a certain way, I think is a faulty construct to live within in the first place.
So don't try and fit into the stereotype and be in a permanent state.
Yeah, because like I think men who, and we're trying to work this out, is especially if they go into men's groups or whatever it is, it's like they see other men opening up and they might want to, but there's also this identity. We spoke about ego structure and identity wrapped up in, well, no, I'm the stoic man. I keep my mouth shut. I get on with things, and all of that conditioning, both in the home growing up, but also collectively, socially, sort of comes into play. So we're trying to now, I think, work out when are the right times to be this type of man, when are the right times to be this type of man and this type of man, and that's an ongoing process.
And but Hollywood has a big part in this as well. It's like it's gone from the John Wayne and the Vin Diesel and the Bruce Willis. They've been what we've been fed to Clint Eastwood sort of stuff to now the a lot of the male um, role modeling, I suppose, has transitioned greatly into now it's more comedic now, it's more light, it's more you've got to be funny, you've got to be um, verbally versatile, you've got to you got to be emotionally supportive, you've got to be all this. So I think that's where a lot of the confusions come from as well, because we do model, we are trying to learn, and if it keeps changing, then well, now what do we do?
Yeah, well, of course we're doing that. Like we're growing up trying to work out, what am I meant to be? Where do I fit in? What am I meant to do? And we normally look at our dads, and then from there it branches out to like other adult males, with school friends or uncles and that kind of thing. And then obviously TV and movies come in, like you said, and we're unconscious of it when we're young, but we're looking out there going, okay, how do I have to be? What do I have to grow into? And so, yeah, like think about, yeah, some of the leads in movies and TV shows now as men compared to, like you said, bloody Bruce Willis in Die Hard and Clint Eastwood and everything. It's like, whoa, that's so different. A clip popped up
Mhm.
of Arnold Schwarzenegger from Commando on my Instagram this morning. Like, what a great movie that was. And I'm like, you look at that and just think, I don't know if they could even make that movie today. There'd be just so much backlash.
Oh,
Oh, it's toxic masculinity. It's like it's a made-up fucking
uh,
movie. Relax, you know.
yeah, and you go now to you got your Owen Wilson and your Will Ferrell and all these sort of types of dudes, and it's great guys. But it's just the shift has been quite significant in a very short period of time. So I heard, the comedian Nate Bargatze.
No.
Uh, you'd know him if you saw him.
Okay.
He saw a clip of his comedy thing, and he was talking about the difference in men and women in relationships. And he's like, women are trained from the day they're born. When they're a baby, they're given a baby doll. And it's like, right, from day dot, here's a baby that you've got to look after. And then they they dress it and they play cat, and then they get a fake vacuum and do this and they learn how to keep a house and all this stuff. He goes, um, men are given Ninja Turtles like and Transformers. They're not even real things. They,
Mm.
they don't exist. He's like, and it's that's what we've got to deal with. And because I didn't ever see a Ninja Turtle cartoon where Donatello was like, "Oh, hang on, April's just turned up. Oh, hang on, my wife's not comfortable having you around, April. Sorry." And then his wife turns up and goes, "Is that bitch April around here?" And it was really funny the way he did it.
Very good.
Um, but it was so true. It's like if you look at the conditioning from early childhood to teenager to adult, it's worlds apart, and then we're expected to come together and fucking cohabitate successfully and harmoniously.
Oh, isn't it funny? It's like where everyone says when they get older and get into this work, they're like, oh, I wish I had like a guidebook, or my parents had a guidebook of being a human. But it's like we focus on all this other stuff that has nothing to do with our experience of a human being and just trying to acquire things or, get things. And there's no, you know, early on. That's a great point. Yeah, they give the girls dolls, boys, yeah, that play with things or fighting things and all that. And then we try and come together. Yeah, because we're all just grown up toddlers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah.
Oh no, I just wanted to. Earlier, you just said about the definition of health, and you're talking about was it mental, physical, and social well-being.
Yeah,
And
and not the absence of disease or infirmity.
yeah, and I mean, when you said those things, I'm like, they're so interlinked, aren't they? It's like if we
Mhm.
have really good mental health and emotional health, then our physical health tends to be better because we're not putting our body under all these stress chemicals all the time. And when we're looking after our physical health by exercising and eating well, we're giving our mental and emotional health a boost, as opposed to if we're eating, junk food. And when our mental health's good, we normally want to go out and engage socially. But when it's bad, we want to withdraw and isolate. And, if we have good social connections, then we tend to want to have more of that. But if we have some bad and toxic social connections, we tend to want to withdraw more. So I was thinking of those three categories, but also the integrated human being that we are, and how looking at, one of those will tend to improve other areas of our health.
But one can also compromise the other. So a lot of people, their mental health isn't great. They go to the gym and they get all these wonderful chemical experiences and get on a high, which actually, and I feel great, but it actually is creating a false economy. It's actually masking that their mental health isn't great, or they form a codependent relationship on the gym. And now, like someone the other day came in and they're like, "Oh, I've meditated every morning for an hour for 6 years." I'm like, "Wow, that's solid." They're like, "Yeah, I get really frustrated if I can't do it." Like,
My mum,
uh,
when I was growing up and I was a kid, my mum worked at the Croydon Leisure Centre, and so they were a gym and they had pools and everything. And so she would go and open up. So she'd be there at like 5:30 or something to open the doors. And she said there'd always be this crew like who'd want to go and run, and so there was like maybe 2 days of the year that this joint was closed, and I remember like Good Friday might have been one of them, and the phone would just start ringing off the hook because all the people who would need to get their exercise at the gym in were waiting outside to say, when are you coming to open up? So we're closed today, and they get so shitty. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
Scratching their arms like, I need to get my cardio in. It's like run in the fucking park, in a treadmill. So that's that. Yeah, when a healthy activity can actually become quite toxic.
Yeah, or social, a lot of blokes will hang out, and alcohol can be a main driver or connector for blokes to hang out. So all of a sudden they're introducing alcohol, and then maybe some drugs, and then and then next minute, you're eating crap food the next day because you're hungover, and So yeah, it can go one of two ways, but
So
it's about
it's about what?
just understanding what health is, I think, first and foremost, and not just treating the body, seeing yourself as mental, physical, and social. And how am I turning up to take care of all of these things? Am I being proactive in maintaining these in a healthy way?
And maybe as a man or even as a woman listening to this, like take a bit of personal inventory and look at those three categories and go, okay, I'm going to give myself a little rating here about how I'm doing with those. And maybe it is like, oh, I feel like I am eating pretty well, looking after myself. I give myself an 8 or a 9 for the physical, and
We
mentally,
do
I'm
that. We
I'm
do that at the start of a program. We literally have these three interlocking circles of mental, physical, and nutritional. And then there's a sweet spot in the middle. And we get clients to score themselves out of 10 in each category, which creates a score out of 30. And most scores end up under 15.
mm,
And then I say, what do you think in a ideally healthy person, what would the score be? So often they say the score is, oh, 30. And I'm like, no, no, that's that's too far that way. So 24 is a good score. 8 out of 10 in each component, I think, is a really
yeah.
realistic, sustainable, healthy goal.
Are you someone that if you got asked to do a rating list on anything, are you someone who can give a 10 if it's perfect, or are you someone that could never give yourself a 10?
Never 10.
Yeah, me neither.
I,
I've done that before. I'm like 9, and they're like, "Oh, what would it take to get to a 10?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, it feels perfect, but I can't allow myself no wriggle room for improvement."
yeah, yeah. Or to be
Yeah,
human. I don't want to. Yeah, it's unattainable to me,
yeah. So,
which it
so
needs to
would
be, I
you
think.
would you then, let's say that I came to do, Myndfit program, your little Myndfit antennas were going off, going, "Holy shit, look at this guy coming in," and then I sat down there, and I had a, physical, obviously, like, I don't know, 9, 8.5, and maybe I'm like, and then maybe I'm like mental, like I feel like I'm going okay, but I have my days. I'm going to give myself a 7. But then socially, I'm like, yeah, I've really withdrawn. So socially, I'll probably a 3. Would you then, with the client, focus on that lowest number first?
Um, no, because it's the point of us doing it is to just create some awareness, firstly, and it needs to be a gentle awareness. It's just an observation. It's not good, bad. We don't judge it. We don't get reactive towards it. It's just, all right, let's just sit with this for a minute. And does this make sense? And let's look at what's contributed to this, because you've got to work in the reality of what it
Do
is.
they
So
do a
the reality
re-rating at
is,
some point in the future?
yeah, 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 at the end.
Yeah.
Physical health is most often at the highest, I think it's the easiest.
Mm.
Social and is probably second, and mental is usually around three or four for
Which,
most
which
people.
like the sample size of people coming to see you are like wanting help with their mental health. So that's not a great surprise. If they came in and
Not a
went
great
mental health
surprise.
10, you're like, okay, what the fuck are you doing here then?
I've had people come in and give themselves an
Have
8
you?
for mental health. Yeah. And I just sit there and I'm like, okay, we've just gone through all these distortions and and you've come here and told me how angry and angsty you are and how much suffering you're in. Can I learn where this notion for 8 comes from? And it's what you said before about that guy. He's like, I don't want to. be seen to not be perfect. I don't want to, be embarrassed with a sense of shame. I'm like, all right, so this eight's not really an eight, is it? Can we just oh, it ends up being like a three or something.
I had one client come in years ago, you just made me remember, and they came in similar thing. And they're like, oh yeah, emotional health, yeah, no problem. And then I got up, I'm like, come sit here. And I swapped chairs. I put him in the therapist chair and went and sat on the couch. I'm like, please educate me. Tell me where I'm going
Yeah,
wrong. He's like, oh,
I've
okay,
done
I'll get it, I'll get it. Oh.
that. Um, Physical health's easy, I think, because it's something you can see, it's something you can attend to. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I get that. It's real. Mental health's different, it's mental health. For me, I look at mental health, I describe mental health as just a spectrum of emotions that are all equally important as one another. But it's just where are you on that spectrum and for how long are you there? And poor mental health can be at the end of unpleasant or suffering emotions. So, um, poor mental health can decline into mental illness, which is we're in a real weird time as well, where people are going looking for labels. People are, are going, I want to go and get labeled. Just, and I think it's because they want to make sense of it, because it's there's not enough education about what it actually is, or they're just trying to. I don't
I
know.
think
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's that I think there's a feeling of safety and that I think deep need of being understood. So I think people that have felt misunderstood and that's one of their woundings, so to speak, they'll love a diagnosis. Like they'll froth a diagnosis because all of a
Mm.
sudden they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is me. Now I can tell people this is me and they'll understand me.
That's where they identify as the label, which is where it becomes really problematic.
Yeah. But
And
I think yeah, the far
now,
more the far more powerful I think place to be is, you know, I don't know what I am. I'm not going to have any label of
well,
myself.
everything's impermanent. So the issue with labels is they create the permanency. They create absolute. It's just it's black and white now. There's no room for shifting or changing or evolving or I have depression. It's such a damaging sentence for me because it's absolute. It's like I'm feeling in a depressive state. I'm feeling in a bit of a low patch at the moment. There's room to move from that.
I'm just
So
trying to think like if because the trendy one at the minute's being diagnosed as an adult with ADHD or neurodiversity. And I'm imagining if they got the diagnosis, but that the doctor or whoever psychiatrist said, oh, you've got adult ADHD for now. And you have to like say like I've got it for now. I don't think they would feel that sense of safety. I wouldn't be posting about it on social media nearly as much.
what are they trying to? Yeah, I agree with you. They want to feel safe and secure, and they want to feel comforted by this label. Um, Why? What's the fear of this? What's the threat?
I think the threat is social isolation. I think the threat is, so people don't get me, right? And so that feels emotionally disturbing. People don't get me and they don't understand me. Now I get this label, and now what I've done is I've made a story about the label and go, oh, this now means that people either will understand me or there's a reason why they haven't understood me, which means there's not actually something wrong with me, which I think is what it comes down to. I think it's a shame-based, there's something wrong with me, and it alleviates that to a degree.
But people are going to accept and embrace you when you accept and embrace yourself. Like if you own this thing, like we're all different. We all need to be different. We need to be unique. We need the whole spectrum. So if you're a little bit different to your partner or your friends or whatever, and you own that, then they're more comfortable with it. They're only going to be uncomfortable at it with it if you're insecure about it. If you keep, oh no, I'm this, I shouldn't be. If that sense of shame is there, or that embarrassment's there, that insecurity is going to leak into the relationships.
That's the core wounding at the end of the day. I think that's what I've seen people have trouble with the most. It's like, can you accept yourself exactly the way you are in this moment? And people like, even the thought of it, I can see their bodies start to contort and like go up. And they're like, because they want to say yes, but deep down, they're like, no, I can't. You're right. Sorry, my dog's having a little dream here. She had some input then.
Is there we were talking earlier about hyper and hypo and balance. So can you own yourself too much? Does that create a rigidity then? It's just like, well, this is just who I am. Fuck it. This is,
We yeah, we've been doing a few classes on shame specifically lately, and we've been talking about like there's like with any emotional state, there's healthy versions of it. You know, anger, fear, sadness, you know, there's healthy versions of it. And sometimes we get lost in that because we're stuck in chronic suffering states with these emotions.
or we've been taught that they're negative emotions or bad
That's right.
feelings.
Yeah. And so, yeah, there's like a healthy amount of shame that we carry as human beings. Number one, to inhibit us from doing behaviors that will socially isolate us. Like I can't walk down the street slapping, women on the ass and, doing, pulling all the dogs' tails and all that kind of stuff because
But you do.
I'll quickly, well, I'm a little bit of a different case. I've got a label. I'm actually diagnosed and I'm allowed to do
Okay, right, fair enough. Yeah. Your doctor
it. And
said
so
it's okay.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah. He's not an official doctor, but I met him in an ayahuasca ceremony, and he said he was a doctor of something. He was wearing a
He had a
mankini.
stethoscope
He was wearing nothing but a stethoscope, so I assumed he was a doctor.
and a cape.
I would love my doctor to wear a cape. More people should wear capes. Um,
Oh, bring it
and
back.
so
Bring it back.
And so it inhibits, certain behaviors to keep us a part of the group. But it also, if we had no levels of shame, then we would just become a narcissist really, really quickly. We would
Yeah.
value ourselves. We would think everybody else is insignificant and we're the most important thing that's ever been created by the universe. And so, that's what you're talking about. We can go to those levels of going, well, this is me, fuck everyone else. There's that one like, someone saying, "Oh, don't mind me. I've got A, B, and C, label." And then it's like, "No, Jenny, you're just a cunt."
Well, when you enter that space, there's no room for self-reflection um, or to take someone else's reflection. And this is where it can get so complicated because the lines are so fine. We need feedback from our surroundings, from our environments you know, to help us back into alignment because we're not objective enough to see ourselves. But if the ego is involved, it's going to perceive that to be a threat and go, no, no, and shut it down or reject it. Or if there's a deep insecurity, it'll accept it, but in an unhealthy way, go, yeah, you're right, I am that. And it'll create a down. Um, but done in a healthier way, it's like, thank you for highlighting that I've come out of balance a bit, and now I can make the appropriate adjustments to come in back into balance. And but a lot of people are reflecting that it's the ego is reflecting, and it's a very judgy sort of reflection, which just shuts the person down or creates conflict or separation and segregation as well. So it's really weird, and it's really important to turn up and go, all right, I've had this reflected to me. Is it is it their ego judging me, which says more about them than it says about me,
Mm.
or is there an element of truth in this?
Yeah, that's the discernment process. I was talking to a client about this last week, and it's that sort of inner compass. And when we do accept ourselves and feel very grounded and solid within ourselves, then these outside opinions, what you're saying is being reflected to us, we can take it in, but then we can assess it and leave it or not leave it because they had um, someone in their life, it was a family member actually, and she has this big decision to make, and you could feel the outside voice not being objectively looked at and stirring up all these emotions. And you could tell she was possibly going to make a decision of what someone else wanted, not what she wanted. So we're going through the process of trying to get really solid within herself so we can be in that space where we're like, okay, I'm hearing this and I'm hearing this and I'm hearing this. Let me take that in and work out what I want to do because I'm the one that has to look at myself in the mirror every morning. So, I think a lot of people, and I was there most of my life, it's like, what does everyone else want me to do and be? And trying to define myself in reference to other people. And part of my process personally has been one of working out who I am, accepting myself for that, working on myself at the same time, but then also going, I'll listen to what everyone has to say, but at the end of the day, I'll do what I want to do, and I'm going to not hurt anyone in the process.
I had a different thing. It's that's really cool because my thing, because we moved around so much as a kid, and it was there's a lot of instability. I distinctly recall thinking that I felt like a chameleon.
Mm,
I'd change in every social scene or whatever, and I'd adapt to this to be accepted, and I'd adapt to that to be accepted. And um, later on, I reflected, and I'm like, that's probably needed to some degree. Like, we need to be adaptive, but not to the degree that I was doing it. Because there needs to be that stable core, and I don't think I ever had that stable core to come home to. So I was this version of Nick that was just like, oh yeah, well, I'll do this, I'll do that. I had to fit in, or never really. There was never really that sense of ownership. So, and then that brought out that shame thing. It was like, oh, well, everyone's opinion was so important. And
mm.
so all of a sudden you've outsourced your confidence, you've outsourced your happiness, you've outsourced your self-esteem and your self-worth.
Yeah, I've had so many clients who have been in that process, and you simply ask them, it's like, what do you want in life? And they don't know. And they'll search for answers and they'll go, well, I told my partner I was going to do this. And growing up, mum and dad wanted me to do that. I'm like, no, no, no. What, like sitting here right now, what exactly do you want out of your life? And they're like, I don't know. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I like and
Mm.
what I don't like. And it's like, okay, well, that's probably a good place to start because if we're going to start a process of working together, I can't help you move in the right direction if we don't even know what that direction is.
So we've got the Myndfit motto is discomfort precedes success, but success is too broad. So we get them to define and create goals in order to achieve. So it's basically what you're doing. Um, and a lot of people put happy on there and like, all right, cool. And then the first mindful element is the golden rule. Who's responsible for your happiness and health? And 100% of clients have gone, yeah, I am. I'm like, all right, what's the definition of happiness? Uh, yeah, I don't know. Not sure. And like, all right, so your goal is to be happy, but you're not actually sure what happiness is. And they're like, yeah, I can see the conundrum. I'm like, all right. And what ends up happening is most people fall into this trap of going seeking pleasure, which they mistake for happiness or dopamine. Um, and the ego takes over and goes, all right, when I get this, then I'll be happy. And it's this very fleeting, temporary state where then we start explaining that the definition of happiness is to be content, is just to be, ah, I'm here, and everything is as it is, and they're like, oh, yeah, that sounds hard.
Isn't that why we're so susceptible? Because we'll be sitting there like, bloody angry or depressed or whatever, and then we don't even know what the definition of happiness is, but we see an advert and there's like, someone on a 7-day cruise and they're like laughing and smiling, and we're like, I think I need to go on a fucking cruise. And so we book a cruise, and then you see someone on another ad and they're like eating a protein bar. I need to get a fucking protein bar. And so we're just so lost as to what we want that we just see things and go, oh, that's what I need to be doing, when it's got nothing to do with probably what we actually want or need as a human being.
No, no, it's yeah, it's amazing. So that's probably the favorite part of my job is just sort of offering um, these understandings, and then Okay. Geez, our dogs are active today. Um, yeah. Anyway, so it gets them back to because for me that's the foundation of health. If you can be at peace within yourself, then that's a great bedrock for health to flourish from.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. It all starts from within. Beautiful, mate. That's probably a good place to wrap up there. So Men's Health Month. We get a whole month. I'm surprised. That's great. Is that a new thing?
No, yeah, but for the rest of the 11 months, you've got to neglect your health. So it's only for this 1 month that you've got
Yeah,
to
okay.
look after
It's
your
like it's
health.
like, dry July and you're like your body's a temple. And August 1st you get shit faced.
Like this meditation client, I'm like, oh, so are you living a meditative life? And they're like, say what now? I'm like, are you living a meditative life? Or are you just ticking the box and you've become a meditator and then you go and be really reactive for the rest of the day? And she goes, yeah, that sums it up, I think. Uh,
Yeah. It's like, what are we learning? What are we learning there? Because we can't
Are we, are
meditate
we,
24 hours a day.
are we embodying it?
Yeah. So true. All right, mate. We'll wrap it up
All
there.
right, mate.
Men's Health Month. Everyone, look after yourselves, look after the people that you love in your life. Reach out for help if you need it. And yeah,
Checking on your fellows without an agenda, without just try and hold space for them.
yeah, yeah. Send someone a text now. Send a mate a text and just go, hey, mate, I just want to check in. How you doing? How's life? You know, because you don't know how much that can mean to someone.
All right. Texting Ryan Hassan. Hey mate, it'll be healthy if we go and play golf.
He'll probably get back to you later. He's a bit of a rude prick.
Yeah, I know. All right, catch you later.
Peace.